All right. Perfect. So good afternoon, Max team. I'm going to start sharing my screen here. I have the distinct pleasure of introducing you to one of my favorite modules that CrunchTime has ever released, which is actually called TeamworX, and it is a scheduling application that is fully integrated with what you already have in NetChef. So it's very exciting. We're going to start with the setup here in NetChef. This is just your access, just like you'd see it. I do have slightly more access than you, but you'll be able to see all the features that we're going to look at here. I want to start, and I'm sure that Jill will back me up when I say that this is where we are going to have the information for you to be able to access it via TeamworX, but your system of record, as far as payroll and HR is concerned, is still, was it Paylocity? I just want to be sure.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So it's still Paylocity. So if you are making changes here, make sure that those changes are also being communicated to Paylocity, or that the information you put here matches Paylocity. So we don't have any confusion in the system. So the module we're going to work in is here under labor. I'm going to go to employee maintenance. And actually, just for fun, I'm going to go to our test location real quick so I can actually hire myself without bothering poor Doug by having extra people there. And again, labor, employee maintenance. So I can either go here, you'll notice there was a create employee check box if that was what I wanted to do first, or I can use my little plus arrow and I'm going to add a new person. So it'll prompt me to put in my employee number, and I'll just pick something for myself here. And you'll notice that there's few fields here that have red asterisks. So that employee number is required, primary location and status, and date hired are required. Those are going to default to the location I'm in, right? I can only be hired into this one as I'm going. If I'm being hired, I'm probably an active employee, and that date hired is going to default to today, but can be updated as needed. Then I can go ahead and put in the required information. That's my name. And that's pretty much what I've got to do to follow through. We're going to spend a little more detail kind of as we go through here. This first one I want to touch on is this box right here, this manager checkbox. Now, this manager checkbox tells TeamworX via NetChef that the person that this record is tied to should be able to access TeamworX as a manager and write schedules, right? Or access staff requests. It's what's called a TeamworX manager. So we'll talk about this again, but I just want to point out this first time, that's what this manager checkbox here is for. So I'll move on and I can fill in what I need to, including this email address here. Now, email address is not required, but I understand it is required for Toast. So looking down the line, it would probably be a good idea to start entering something here. And the second benefit is that your version of TeamworX that you'll be working with has actually implemented something called an onboarding welcome letter. And that onboarding welcome letter is going to allow you to send a notification to your teammates, hey, here's TeamworX, here's how to access it. And in order for that to work, they're going to need to have an email address with which they can apply here. So I've put my email address in, and I can go down to the next field I need to enter here. I got my date of birth, and then this pay type. So this is where I'm going to select, am I an hourly or a salary employee? So if I say that I'm an hourly employee, or if I check any of these, it's going to give me this pop-up to say, what is my primary job code? What are you hiring me to be? So I like to hire myself as a host, and then I like to pay myself just a frankly ridiculous amount of money when I hire myself as a host. And hitting save and close here is going to make that my primary job code. Now, if you're hiring someone to work multiple job codes, or you're adding multiple job codes for an existing employee, that's totally cool. We're going to go through that in just a second. But I wanted to start by showing that this pop-up is going to come up and I can enter what I need to. Now, before we're going to go here, filled out everything I must have here. I'm going to go to my positions tab. There we go. And this is where I can add further or new job codes. Now, before I get too into this, I did want to ask, does anybody ever borrow employees from somewhere else?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So then we'll cover that while we're in here as well. You'll notice that maybe say I also need to have access to front of house trainee. and I get paid, I still get paid my insane amount of money doing that as well. And I now have both of these, right? I can be scheduled both of these codes. And if for some reason front of house trainee were to become my new primary, checking that box would make it the number one here that's going to show up for me. That's my primary job code. Now, the reason I asked about borrowed employees is this checkbox here that says alt locations. So let's just say, for sake of familiarity in my brain here, I work at Max Burger CT, and occasionally I go work at Max Burger, the other Max Burger, right? So what I would need to say is I occasionally work as a host over at that other location. So I'm going to check this box that says I am eligible to work this job code at another location. So I have access to this job code at another location. And then there's a second step to that process. I'll go here to my locations tab, and I will add the other location that I might need to work in. This is where I would just select, yes, I'm going to work in this other location on these times, right? This is where I need to be scheduled. I could choose my Max Burger CT, and then that means that Max Burger CT will see me as a schedulable employee. I will still be owned by my primary location. They'll, be the only ones who can edit anything to do with my record, but I will be visible to the other restaurant as well. Go ahead and delete that just because I don't want poor Max Burger to see me. They don't need to. There we go. Perfect. Now, on these three tabs, as we've discussed them, so setting up our basics here in NetChef and employee maintenance or making edits, does anybody have any questions? Yeah, I see you, Sean.
Yeah, Emily, all the information for our staff, is it being transcribed from hot schedules into CrunchTime, or is that something we have to manually do?
I believe it's already been done.
Okay, I have not had access to this website because I don't have their credentials yet. I haven't received that, an employee ID number. So I can't verify that the downtown information has been put into the system.
Sean, would you consider yourselves an employee or a manager that would be actually adding these employees to NetChef?
Manager/administrator. So I'm the one responsible for doing the front of house schedules.
Okay. And just to, because I know Brian and Bobby, you've talked to me about this before, would Sean be somebody different that hasn't had access for like inventory and purchasing, right? Sean's just doing schedules.
Correct.
Okay. So Sean, I would defer to Brian and Bobby on making sure that you have your login credentials. They can get a list of people that need that login access to NetChef here so that you can actually go in and update the employee information. But Jill and the team work together to give us complete employee lists as of just earlier this week, and they've all been imported. So now the next steps are just going through and adding additional positions like Emily just showed you. And then if there's any shared employees or kind of exceptions of things that aren't necessarily just in Paylocity, those would be the changes that you would need to make in NetChef here on the screen that Emily is showing.
All right, and then just to clarify, I don't know if this will help with anything, Sean, you would be able to have access to TeamworX even if you didn't have access to NetChef. So you could be a schedule writer for a given department even if you never accessed NetChef as a general role. So. All right, anybody else? All right, excellent. So we're going to take a brief detour further into NetChef before we move over to TeamworX. Just to cover a couple more setup pieces that you may find helpful moving forward. Anybody in the team who has this. There are two other places here under labor that we're going to look at. I imagine from personal experience that when you are writing schedules, you usually have in mind where you want someone to be. That could be that maybe they're like the first bartender, maybe they're the grill or the plate nacho person. And that's where this function I'm about to show you comes into. So under here for labor, I went to stations. And stations is where I can create what those positions might be. So this isn't a job code. This is just a name describing a shift for an employee. So I'm saying here I've got grill, I could have plate nacho, I could have day 1 or day 2, however kind of I like to organize my schedule when I'm writing it, so I know that all my sections are covered. And all I need to do is just put them in here. I can enter a code if I want, or the code can even be the same thing as what I say the station is. For instance, here I entered day 1. And then in order for me to be able to use that station, I need to tell CrunchTime what position might use that station. So I'll go to the second one here, which is positions. So just to clarify again, this isn't you being able to add or change job codes that are available to your restaurant. You're only saying this position, this job code, for instance, here I'll take server and I'll hit link stations. When I'm writing schedules for this employee, for this job code, I want to be able to say that there's a day 1 here. So we'll talk about that a little more. I'll show you the actual physical part of it. But personally speaking, I can say from lots of experience with writing schedules, having that ability to say what station I'm doing really helped me understand that I was making sure everything was covered. The only other one I want to just talk about here in NetChef, and then we'll take questions one more time, is just a reminder that under sales, we have managed sales forecasts. And your managers can actually, or you managers, excuse me, can be coming in here, selecting the week that you're about to write a schedule for, and entering your sales forecast as you expect it. So some of you that this may update automatically as time goes on, as CrunchTime learns your historical data, but some of you may find that you need to come in here and manually update it. And that will help you when you're writing your schedule, you'll be able to see projected percentages for your schedule as you're writing it. How does everybody feel about just the basic concept here of stations, positions, and sales forecasts? All right, excellent. Now we get to go do the fun stuff. So we're going to go actually look at TeamworX. So I have TeamworX ready. This is your database for TeamworX. And we're going to talk about the fact that there are 2 or 3 different types of access to TeamworX. So there are NetChef managers. So those are managers that use their NetChef username and password to access TeamworX. There are roughly, I want to say it's less than a dozen of you who are going to be able to access that way. So if you feel like you should be able to do it, you can reach out to your head office team and they can decide with you, but just understand that that's been primarily limited to general managers or managing partners. So if you're the head general manager or managing partner, and the reason I call that out now is that we're going to actually have a little section towards the end of this call where we'll talk, the group of us, about functions that are going to be limited to those people. The majority of you are
Emily?
Yes.
I think people are in the lobby who are trying to get in. I don't know if that's you who can let them in, or you are.
I let everyone in. I don't see anybody pending in the lobby.
Yeah, I've been admitting everybody as we go too.
Sorry.
No, my apologies. I'm trying to get on them.
Good call out, but I've been got my eyes on it also. All right.
Yeah, it pops up for me.
All right. So we talked about NetChef managers and who that's going to be mostly the managing partners and general managers. And then the second kind that's the majority of everyone, and that's those TeamworX managers. Now the TeamworX managers, again, the reason that what will set you apart as being a TeamworX manager is that manager checkbox that we saw in employee maintenance. And then finally, the third type of access will just be your standard hourly employees who are in there to make staff requests and view their schedules. Now, TeamworX is either this website, excellent website, is actually mobile optimized, so you can use it from a tablet or a cell phone as needed. And there's actually also a mobile app that is primarily employee based information, the employee information, and they can the functionality on that improves all the time. They're always adding new things. Excuse me. And my favorite part of it is it has push notifications. So if they want to have a notice, hey, there's, my schedule got updated or your request was approved or denied, that's where those push notifications from the app are super handy. So just again, we're going to start with TeamworX functions that affect everyone. And then we're going to work our way to where it's just the GMs. Excuse me. With that new version of TeamworX that you're going to be rolling out to your employees, you're actually going to have access to this feature here, which I mentioned just a minute ago, which is the onboarding tab. So you'll see it just looks like this. This is actually a little help thing that I can send out. This is the notes of what's changed between the version of TeamworX that we're going to look at and the next one that you're going to have access to. And you'll be able to select the people, send them an onboarding letter. And that onboarding letter will look like this. It will tell them where to go. It'll tell them what they need to do, and it will provide them with their CrunchTime employee number. And their CrunchTime employee number and their date of birth are what they need to be able to create an account and access TeamworX. And that's the same thing for those of you who are TeamworX managers. You'll do this same process as well. So they can actually go through and generate this. So we'll actually do it real quick just so everyone can see it. I'll hit create account. And it's going to start telling me, do I want to sign up with my email or a phone? My phone number. Email. I can put my CrunchTime employee number, which I just made up, my date of birth, and those are the two fields that tell CrunchTime who you are, right? This is what's linking you back to that record and employee maintenance. And then I can choose a password. And select some security questions so that I can reset my password as I need to later. Let's go color of my first car. You guys don't need to know my parents' names. And there's all important checkbox here, show my contact info to coworkers. So they can actually default, and the same thing goes for you, to say my phone number and email address should be available to other people if they want to reach out to me. Maybe they want to swap shifts or they want to contact me or something. Or you know what? I don't think anybody needs to know my personal information. The managers will still have it. It's still available to them, but my coworkers do not. And I can hit create. And now I can log in. Now, it did send me a pop-up because it wanted me to confirm my email address, which I can do, or I can just go straight in. So here's TeamworX, and this is what you'll see. We have the manager console and the My Portal. So My Portal is the employee side, but we're going to focus here on the manager console. And now I have access to what I'm going to do. So we're going to start with the fun stuff, which is we're going to go straight here to manage schedules. Now, this is where you're going to create schedules. And I'm only going to, the only limitation I want people to be aware of is don't start schedules too far into the future. Now, one of the neatest features of this is when I'm creating schedules, I can choose to copy previous schedules if I have them, and I can choose to copy them with or without employees. If I start a schedule 6 weeks from now, maybe somebody might be let go in between now and that 6 weeks. Maybe something's going to have changed with my business, and I'll end up having to make a lot of manual corrections that may have been incremental if I'd done them slowly over time. So it's always a best practice to be making schedules as you're ready to do them, but don't be starting them until you're ready to finish them. I'll hit create new, and I can select the week ending date I'm writing for. I'll write for the week of New Year's, and I can choose to copy with or without employees. If I had a previous schedule to work from, I could actually say, bring it over blank, just give me the shifts, or I could say, bring it over entirely, and I'll make little changes as I need to. And I'll hit submit. Now, there's a lot of views of these schedules. It defaults here most of the time. There we go. It defaults to the week view, so I can see the schedule all in one glance, all a go. And it also defaults to sorting it by position, but I could look at it by the day. So I could write a single day at a time. Or I can view, and then I can also sort to say, maybe I want to see back of house and front of house separated. Maybe I don't care about that differentiation. I just want to look at every single employee, or continue to show me just by job code. There will be further delineation of this that I'm going to discuss with the GMs as we go forward. Just as sort of a peek for that, one of the features that general managers have that they can enable for the rest of the schedule writers is they can set it up so that maybe if you write the bar schedule, the only schedule you need to see is the bartenders. So you can only work, you only have to see the bartenders, and then you can actually send out the bartender schedule as soon as you're done with it, regardless of whether the other departments are finished as well. I'm also then going to show you what I imagine will be everybody's favorite button, and that's this one right here, which says override availability. This is especially useful now at holiday times. You can actually enable this to say, my teammate, even if they have a request off, even if they say they're not available this day, let me write over that. Let me schedule them regardless of their availability. I understand what I'm doing and I don't need that notification at this time. It'll still show that the person was unavailable. You'll see like a pink hue to the shift to say this person's unavailable, but you'll be able to schedule anyway. I know this is really important, especially like I said, around holidays, because, you know, I may normally have class on Friday, but I'm not going to have class on the Friday right before Christmas. So I don't need to worry about that notification that says that that person can't work on Friday. All right. Before we go too far, how does everybody feel so far? Are there any questions I can work on with you? All right, we'll keep moving here. So it's pretty straightforward, and I think that you'll find that it's really user-friendly. From in here, if I want to add a new line, I need to add a new employee. I can go ahead and select that. I clicked the plus sign to add this bartender. And if I want to start writing information in here, if I click into his line, it activates that line for me to work in. This little info icon will tell me if there's any other shifts or availability for this particular week that I would need to know about for this employee. And then from within here, once I've started adding some shifts, and let's say Thursday, he needs to work 4 to 10. You'll notice all I had to do was type 4 to 10, and now I can clarify. Did I mean 4 a.m. to 10 a.m., 4 a.m. to 10 p.m., or 4 to 10? And I can actually either copy this, and maybe he works that 4 to 10 pretty regularly. He works it Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Or I could drag that shift off to somebody else's line. Let's say I add myself as a host here. I'm also going to work 4 to 10. Oops. Oh, sorry. I need another bartender. My apologies. Anyway, I can drag that shift as well. So I could copy it to somewhere else, or I can move it entirely if I need to. You'll also notice here that it says no station. So I could say that I have to have a station here, or I can leave it blank. And that's where what we were doing in NetChef ties in. If I've got a server, this nice person named Kyle, and he's also going to work, let's say if I write 4 p.m. to 10, right? It automatically knows what I mean, right? Knows what 4 to 10 is. And instead of clicking no station, I can say, you know what? He's working that day 1 shift that I created earlier. So I know that he's listed as day 1. The last thing I want to mention on stations, just because I also know that this is a thing, you can schedule a station and not inform the teammate what station you've assigned them. So it'll print for the managers. They'll have that information available to them. You got to use it to writing, but then they don't have to see that information. So I understand personally from experience that sometimes if you're writing maybe a back of house schedule, you might want to put someone, you know that they're going to be working on the fry station. But if you assign them a station for fry station and then they end up having to work grill, they're not going to be very happy about it because they expected to work fry. So I can set that up so the manager knows that it was fry, but the employee never knows they were expected to work fry. So we won't have any pushback if I have to change stations on them as time goes forward. Any questions? So we're doing good still? All right, we're going to actually talk about how I can disable that station from showing for teammates in just a little bit. Now, you may have noticed looking through my lovely little lines here that I've actually got this little graph bar that shows up at the top of each of these days for each of these positions codes. If I click into it, it's actually showing me a little schedule of what I've got going. So I can see that for bartenders, if I had my sales forecast in here, I would be able to see my sales forecast, and I could see how my scheduled hours were trending along with that sales forecast. So very handy little thing. And that information, as you get more and more historical data into CrunchTime, gets more and more accurate. And it's pretty fantastic. Now I'm going to take a quick break here over to this daily view to give you a different perspective. I believe Wednesday's the first shift I had in here. Yeah. And from here, I'm doing the same thing, but I'm doing it hour by hour, day by day. So you can see that my 4 to 10 was actually painted in. I sort of drew in that I was working 4 to 10. I could still choose my station from this dropdown, and I've got access to my employee and my little copy button, as well as what needing to delete. But there is a neat thing that exists in this daily view that's kind of handy. If I go up here to my little gear icon, this has a lot of settings on it that I can use. How am I displaying my employees? How am I writing my schedule? Do I want to do it in 10-minute increments, 15, 30, or 60? In this case, we're still working in 30. I can choose to hide any violations that might show up as part of my labor rules if I just don't care about them at this point, if I know what I'm doing. And then here's the 2 that are big ones that I think that you'll find useful, that I found very useful personally when I was writing schedules. Hide out times and shift hours on publish. So if you scheduled someone to work from 4 to 10 and they tend to perhaps not like that they might have to stay till midnight, depending on your laws and your company policy, you could choose to hide those out times so that they wouldn't see what time you expected them to leave. They'd only see the in time as you expected it. And then there's my all important hide stations on publish. I don't want them to see that they're working day 1 or day 5. I only want them to know that they're a server for those hours. And then my last one here.
You guys are doing a photo shoot with Jamie today? Question mark.
My last one here is the employee filter.
To know
Now
about.
this. See.
Sorry, Emma. I think I found the culprit.
Okay, thank you. I was like, I'm gonna find it. So this last one is this employee filter. Now, none of these are enabled, but if I had any of them enabled, I would be able to make a note on a shift within these rulings. So I could say, I don't want to allow anybody to go into overtime, right? So it won't let me schedule anyone past getting into 40 hours, or I don't want to schedule anyone that this isn't their primary location. And there are other settings that as time goes on may appear for you depending on corporate settings, as we work with Brian and Bobby. I'm making a note to make sure, but this is a nice one to know that you have available to you. So you can turn on these features to kind of help you as you're writing the schedule. Let's see. So we talked about the gear. This next one here is this little magic wand. Now the magic wand has 2 main functions that sort of come here with it. The first you'll notice is called auto schedule open shifts. So if I filled this in, or even I just put in all the blank shifts as I have them for my teammates, I could then actually use that auto schedule open shifts, and TeamworX would do its best to fill all those open shifts with an employee who is available to work at that time. Now that auto schedule works best when you have your availability in, so that people know, you know when they're available, what they're going to do. And there's some other functionality that goes along with it that makes it work more efficiently that we're going to talk about. But so there is this great thing where TeamworX can automatically fill open shifts if you've left them open, right? You copied it over and you realize somebody took a day off. You can use that as a way to see what's going on. The big one I wanted to point out here is this here, saved shift template as. Now the one above it, load shift template, is also very useful, but save shift template is very useful. What you're essentially saying is make a template out of this day of business that I'm looking at. I like this schedule. I might need to use it in the future, even if I have to change the employees out. The reason I call this out is that, as we all know, there are particular days of business where it's just not the norm. Holiday Mondays are the ones that always come out to me, right? Like anytime when we have a Monday on a holiday, my lunch business is not going to be the same as a standard lunch. My dinner business isn't going to be the same as a standard dinner. Every other day of the week might be correct, but that day might be different. And if I have a template saved for that, I can load that template in for my holiday Monday, or save my template as that holiday Monday and use it again in the future. So every time it comes up, I'm prepared and I don't have to make those manual adjustments. How does everybody feel about some of our magic features here, our extra things to make your schedule writing time faster? I'll take silence as good news, but I am keeping an eye out, so feel free to raise your hand if you have any questions. The next bar over here, the little bar graph, is reports. And you'll actually be able to see specific information. A big one that came up when I was discussing this with Brian and Bobby and Scott is actually this labor schedule metrics. So as I have my schedule going, I can see what hours I've got scheduled. I can see the value of that. I can see average wages. Not going to look at specific, but then that will also give me percentages. So I can see daily labor percent by position, and this would be comparing against sales forecast. So this isn't real-time reporting about stuff that has happened. This is looking forward. This is forecasting percentages, forecasting values against what you have expected to happen during this schedule. Speaking of sales forecasts, you may also notice that there are forecasts in both the weekly and daily view that you can view. So I can see what I'm expecting to have available here for me as I'm going through. And then the final icon that's kind of up here in our little 4 wizardry things here is my printer icon. Now this printer icon has 3 functions on it. One is to print the schedule, right? I want to print this out so I can post it somewhere. One is to print a break report. If I was scheduling breaks, I could have all of those in one place. And this final one I find people seem to find very useful is an availability report. And if I export one of those, it'll actually say, for the days I'm looking at, what is the availability of anybody who I've got currently listed on there. If I just want to have it all in one place, I like to see that on paper. And we all know that sometimes that's just sort of the way that it works best. Does anybody have any specific questions on schedules before we look at the sort of related to schedules things in TeamworX? Perfect. All right, so I'm just going to exit out of here, cancel, because I don't want to send this poor person notifications that they have gotten a shift scheduled. And we're going to look at a few related directly to scheduling. So we're going to come down here to Shift Builder. And we talked about those templates, right? And my big example where I always found value is in those holiday Mondays. So this Shift Builder is where you can actually create those from scratch. If that's your preferred method, if instead of writing a schedule and then saving that day as a template, you'd like to start by creating those templates, then this is where you would want to go to do it. If I hit Create New, I can say, this is my holiday Monday template. I'm just a little bit obsessed. And I can either copy something that I have existing or from another location. If someone else has written a holiday Monday schedule and you really like it, you can borrow it from them to copy. Hit Submit, and you'll notice it looks just like writing a daily schedule. All I've got to do is add my employees, paint in my what I need them to work. Add my shifts, not the employees. And I can have this ready to go so that I know I'm ready to go the next time it happens. I can just load this in, pop in a few employees, or even use my auto scheduler and be ready to go. You'll notice I can even update my description. So if I win the lottery, as my friend Gail always likes to say, if I win the lottery, someone can take over my location and they know everything that I needed them to know coming into here. There's also a function here to name common shifts. And this would be for any particular job code. Are there shifts that I'm pretty much always scheduling exactly that way? Maybe your day cooks or your night cooks are always going to be one of two. Creating this common shifts allows you to just very quickly drop in that this shift is what's always going to be just like this. Rather than typing in the time each time, you can just select from the list what are the ones I might need. So like my line cook, I might need one from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. each time. And then that line cook job would always be grill if I'd had it assigned. And I can just pick that from a list as time goes forward. I'm looking for hands. All right. The next one we're going to look at is we're going to just jump down here to open shifts. Now, the reason I want to call this out because we're into the Christmas season and I know that this can end up being extremely handy for all of you. So I've written my schedule and I've published it and everybody has it. But now it's coming up on the day before New Year's and I just booked a last minute party for 50 people and I need to have an extra person come in, right? I just want a little bit of extra help. Well, that's where open shifts comes in and helps you out. So we don't want to edit the schedule, but we do need to make sure that we have the ability to get that extra person scheduled. So I can actually do what's called post an open shift. I can click my little button here. I can say, you know, it's for the 27th. I'm going to need another server. They'll be working day one because that's the one I have started, and they're going to work 11 a.m. Oops, I didn't clarify 11 a.m. Sorry. They're going to work 11 a.m. They're going to work till 8 p.m. And I can even actually put a little message. So this opens up to everybody who's available. They'll be able to see I could pick up this extra shift. The bonus to you as managers is that in addition to you being able to just create this for visibility, you could put a message here like, hey, I'll buy you dinner, or I'll give you the next major holiday off in exchange for helping me out with this. Or you can, and then you can actually broadcast it, which is force a notification to all of the associated people who could be eligible for that shift. Hey, there's this open shift. You should look at it and consider picking it up. So they'll get a notification, and this is a great way to get that last second coverage as you need to, and have good visibility on what exactly has been going on with that. Everybody feel good on open shifts in the shift builder? All right, cool. We'll get out of here. And now, I don't want to post an open shift. Thank you. All right, we're going to look at a last few features that I know you're going to really enjoy. The next one here we're going to look at is your employee list. So let's go. Pardon me, we're going to switch to a live store so that we can look at closer to live data. If you don't mind, Doug and Tema, you're going to be excellent guinea pigs here for us. I'm going to go into TeamworX. And we're on the employee list. Okay, so now we're in a live location. We can see that this is what we have. So our employee list, you can see our employee numbers, the name, phone number, and email. Now I'm a manager, so I can always see this information. If they've opted not to share that information, if they've chosen not to share that contact information, this information will not be visible to their fellow teammates. So I'll see it as the manager, but they don't need to share that information with anyone else. I want to start by showing there's some really cool features on here. There's a little key you can always get used to in TeamworX, looking down at the bottom of the screen for a little key. And this is going to tell me what I might need to know about this employee. So the little green icons, that means that they're a new sign up. They've just signed up for TeamworX within the last 7 days. So your first couple of weeks, you're going to see a lot of green dots. The yellow dots means that they've been inactive for 7 days, or they've never logged into TeamworX. They've never created an account. So what you're hoping to see when you come in here is a whole bunch of people with no dots. That means they're logging in regularly, they have an account, there's nothing for us to worry about. You'll also know, you'll see that some of these are bolded. That means that's that employee's primary job code. Now, anytime I click on an employee, either here in the employee list or on the daily roster, I can actually get more information about that employee. You'll see that I can see their date of birth, their phone number. If I was accessing this from my phone, clicking that link would take me to the dial screen if I needed to call them, so I could get in contact with them. And I can actually have little notes that are stored only here. The employee can't see them, where I could say, hey, you know, they were late, or I can say they handled a difficult table. Another common usage is this neutral rating of they turned in a new shift food handlers card to me today as of this particular time. And you can follow along with that and then see their availability as well. So I can see what my current week availability is. It's lots of information stored in TeamworX. It's really wonderful. It's really easy to get into and see what we're doing. So in addition to seeing that color code, you're like, but Emily, that's not super helpful. How do I know specifically whether someone has never created an account, or if it's just been more than 7 days since they logged in? How am I supposed to know exactly which feature I'm in? Well, this little printer icon here either allows me to export the employee list, right? Print a copy of it, or I can use my sign up activity report. And in this case, I'll grab it as a PDF. And you'll see this. So now I can see every teammate, and I can see, have they entered availability? You'll notice that most of these are marked as incomplete. They haven't submitted availability to me yet. Have they entered their emergency contact information, so that I've updated that, and I can tell whether that's done. And then more importantly, I can check sign up date and last sign in. So I can identify areas of improvement, right? These people need to get an account. I've now got a checklist. I can follow through with those people. These people haven't logged in a while. Maybe I should follow up, make sure they know their username and password. Do they know how to get into TeamworX? Do they need their account reset? How's everybody doing specifically on that situation? There is a priority tab. This goes for you department managers. Remember I talked to you about how there were some settings that your auto scheduler would help you out with. One of those is that you can say within this department, this is, maybe this person's the number 1, this person's the number 2, and this person's the number 3, right? I prefer to have number 1 working if possible, then number 2, then number 3. Or if I have to fill a shift, it's more important that you fill the bartender shifts than you fill the bar open close shifts. And you can set those priority levels. And then this third tab, an unfortunate but necessary product of our times, is this contact tracing tab. So you'll be able to say, this employee, and we'll just pick somebody randomly, I need to see who they worked with in this time period. And I'll be able to track down those people and say, you may have been, I can follow my company's COVID policies regarding that. So it'll refer to my scheduled times so I can follow through on that. How's everybody feel still on employee list?
Emily, is it the when they check in for their schedule, does that count as a check-in?
As in like accessing TeamworX?
Yes.
Yes.
Will I be able to see that as?
If they're logging into the app or logging into the website, then that will count as having been accessing it.
Okay.
And then just a reminder that there is soon to be another tab on this employee list that you will love. And that was this onboarding tab that we talked about. You'll see it'll be to the right of contact tracing, and that will be where you can send those welcome letters to people.
And soon, just for the record, is tomorrow.
Tomorrow, yeah.
Because it's an upgrade that needs to happen for it to show up, and it's scheduled for tomorrow.
Yeah. I can't say how jealous I am that you'll all have access to that, because that's
going to save you so much time, Emily.
I don't want to think about all the time I wasted not having access to something like that. It will make me sad.
Better than never.
Better late than never. So that will be a really valuable tool for you as well. You're doing such a great job. We're going to go next here to this daily roster. So now those of you who are TeamworX managers, this is going to be your default landing page. When you log into CrunchTime, when you log into TeamworX, it's going to take you to this page, which is fantastic. This gives you everything you need to know about that given day. There's a few cool features that I want to point out. Again, you'll notice down here, we have a key, right? Like a legend that's going to tell us what we might need to know about employees. The big one that I want to point out, there are a few here. There's this little asterisk for Jason here. See, that means he has, stop clicking on Jason, has multiple shifts this day. So I can know that he's on a double. He's working 2 different shifts. This is another really important one that I know everyone will be really grateful for, because this is definitely one of the ones that I requested when I was a manager. And that's this offered for pickup or swap in italics. So if that person's name is in italics, then you know that they're trying to get rid of that shift. They were trying to swap it, or they were trying to give it up, and they haven't been successful yet, or it hasn't been approved. So that can be a good indicator of, hey, maybe I need to follow up with that person, make sure that they're either coming in or that something catastrophic hasn't happened and I don't need to work around them. Or maybe even just, hey, there's a request I need to approve, and then make sure that the team is aware that that person is either coming in or not coming in. So very useful little thing here. The other part of this daily roster that's fantastic is there's just a ton of these print icons. So if I actually click print and I choose schedule, oops, I pushed the wrong button. Sorry, I wanted to hit the gear to go to the settings first. I can actually turn this into essentially a labor card. I have not had a huge amount of experience with hot schedules, but this labor card is really a life changer, right? I can say, show it to me, break it up by day and night, knowing that night starts at this time, show it to me by positions, or show it to me by P&L substructure, some way that I can follow through that information and have it be a format that I can print and either put by the register or put it in my pocket so I know what to expect as the day goes on scheduling. I guess I'm old enough that I remember printing these out, keeping them in my pocket, but it was a really handy tool to have that available to me. Another just little note is that this day on the calendar, I can either advance it to look forward or back, but any notes that are tied to this day, you'll notice here that there's actually like a little manager log or a message center. If something is tied to this day, I'll have a notification at the top letting me know about it. So if I'm the general manager, I'm Doug, and I send a thing out that, hey, we're expecting that party of 50 on the 27th. I can actually put a message into my staff, hey, the 27th, we're expecting a large party. And when I were to come here for the 27th, I'll use my little calendar and pick the 27th. I would expect to see a little notification that said, hey, there's something going on this day. Click here for more information. Okay, let's go back to today because I like today. I don't even remember what today is. All right, perfect. Right. We're going to come down to staff requests because I know this is the next most important thing that you'll care about. Anytime that someone wants to make a change, so they want to swap a shift, they want to add a shift, they want to pick something up, or either from another employee or an open shift that you gave a notification of, they want to request specific time off. Hey, boss, I need next Thursday off. Or, hey, boss, my school schedule changed and I can't work Wednesdays anymore, that availability change. All of those are going to funnel through this request and require your approval. You will be able to come through and say, yes, I approve this, or no, I do not approve it. And you'll be able to have a message. And that information is stored with a time and date stamp so that you can come back to it in the future. There aren't any in here. Good job, Doug and the Max Burger CT team for keeping these managed. But one of my favorite features, we'll see it here. I'm going to go to the activity log because that's where it's stored, is if I actually click on the record for the request, it's going to tell me what the change was. What am I approving, or what have I approved, in this case, looking at the activity log. If it's a swap, it's going to tell me both people, what are the hours they're going to work with if this change goes through, what were the hours before the change was going to go through. Any information that I might need to know to make the best judgment call is going to be available to me before I say yes or no, and I approve it. Any particular questions on staff requests? Because I know that that's going to be one that you're going to spend a lot of time in, but it's pretty straightforward. I think you're going to be in great shape. All right, excellent. My next natural step was the activity log, which we just saw that we can click in to see information. I can see things that were approved by who and when. I can click for more particular information. This information is stored. You can go back if you need to, just as an FYI that it is kept here for you to be able to come back. And then the last two we're going to look at before we say that it's going to be mostly GMs who are going to be related, the net chef managers, are the manager log, which again is just straightforward, but I really wanted to bring to your attention that this is a fantastic place for you to communicate with your managers and store this data. There's lots of little ways that I can create notes. I can tie them to a particular topic, say maybe repair and maintenance. I can tag particular people. Hey, this person needs to know about this message. I need to hear back from them. And I can even put titles, messages. I can mark it as high importance. I need you to see this right away. The first time you log in, I need you to know that this was here. Or I can say, yes, I need you to follow up. I need you to give me some kind of feedback that this has indeed happened. And because I can choose a date, as we spoke, it can get tied back to a particular date, so I have that information ready to go. There is a similar message here in the message center, and this is where I can communicate directly via message either to employees, to groups of employees by position or by P&L substructure, or even just everyone in general. If I were to hit create message, I can actually say, send this to either this group or these individual people. I'll say all, but I won't send it. I can put in a subject line, for instance, a car show or that party of 50. I can say it applies to a particular business date and then send a message. Now, the reason I call out messages in particular is just other than it's handy to be able to communicate changes in procedure, changes in stuff, or maybe even saying, hey, you know, requests off for this day are now closed. It also allows you, once a message is sent, you can come under all messages, find that message and verify who has read it. So you'll be able to see specifically, this message was sent to these 15 people. of these 15 people, these 13 people have already read the message. So you can have a good follow-up and transparency on whether your message was received and read by the intended recipient. Yes, Jill. You are unmuted, but I can't hear you. No. I mean, you're welcome to type it. I can read it out. There we go. All right. Just want to make sure you're done with your question before I read it out loud and answer. Oh, yes, absolutely. So Hot Schedules does have broadcast messaging, and that was one of the features that's been added recently. You'll notice that I had left it defined to location, but you, Jill, and the head office team, you could go ahead and broadcast and then pick particular locations and say, send this to these locations with similar setups. And then just a reminder that high importance checkbox is fantastic. It says the first time you access TeamworX after this message is sent, or if you're already in TeamworX when it's sent, the next time you try to change pages, it will force you to read the message. So, but yes, you do have an awesome access to broadcast. It is a fantastic tool, and I also love it. All right, now I have 2 more things I wanted to talk about that were going to be more towards general managers or managing partners. Does anybody else have any questions that I'd be more than happy to go over with you.
Well, I have a question about, and it may relate to what you're going to talk about in a minute, but I have some managers who are now telling me that they can no longer log into TeamworX. They get a message that says users not allowed to log into TeamworX. And I know that these are people who, like from Berger in West Hartford, who had access prior to this. So
if they were accessing via their NetChef username and password, and were not the less than a dozen people that you told me should have that access, they have been disabled since then, and they will need to access using a TeamworX manager account, as we discussed it earlier.
Okay, can you explain that to everybody?
Yeah. So we talked about in employee maintenance, choosing, oops, I hit a create employee, excuse me.
Emily, sorry, instead of showing them that the manager flag needs to be checked, because I think we've done that part, just showing them like when we log out of TeamworX to create their account, and then the
You kind of covered it at the beginning, but I think it's important to go over it again.
Yeah, absolutely. So to be a TeamworX manager, instead of using your NetChef username and password, you will, if you have not already, use this create account button, just like I did earlier, with your email address, your CrunchTime employee number, and date of birth as they show in employee maintenance. And then you'll be able to log in and access those manager functions again, just as I did when I was logging in. So you'll see I was here, Whitney at CrunchTime. Your screen will look like this. So I log in with that and I hit manager console, and then there's my schedule writing functionality.
Right. So Temlin. Yeah. So there you go. Do you see the conversation?
Yeah. So if you already had, let's just check real quick. Try not to look at it here. So you should be able to log in with that account that you created. Can we? Go ahead,
my recommendation, sorry, Emily, just so we don't get sidetracked, if there's a list of people like Temelin that can't, if we can have those, and maybe we can do some troubleshooting offline.
Yes, please.
Yeah, that's fine. And then to answer Brad's question about where does the employee number come from, that comes, show him if you could on the.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think she was starting to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Brad's question was, where does the employee number come from? So it should be the same as whatever is in your HR system of record, but that will be here in this employee number field, for those that were imported when we did an import based on your system, that will already be here. And when you're creating new employees, you'll want to make sure that that number matches what goes to Paylocity as well.
Yeah, and it's
All right.
and it's the other managers at Burger that have the same problem. So,
Okay.
and Grace.
Yep.
I will, yep, Emily, I'll do some research on my side while you continue
I
with the rest
appreciate
of
it.
the training.
All right. So now I'm going to go back to my NetChef username and password, because these last two features, we're going to focus from the point of view of the general manager. So if you are not a general manager or managing partner, you are welcome.
The Paylocity number and the toast numbers to clock in and out are exactly the same. So it is the numbers that the employees are used to using today, that they will be the same number in CrunchTime. Just to make sure that that's clear, because there's a couple messages popping up there.
Thank you.
All right. So if you are not the general manager or managing partner, you don't need to continue with us. But if you want to see what we're talking about, you are more than welcome to continue. So this is for my NetChef managers that are logging in using their NetChef username and password. We're going to talk about two more features. Now, this manage blackout dates is not limited to NetChef managers. The reason I wanted to specify general managers is because it is generally my experience that they want to have the say on these decisions. But this manage blackout dates allows you to say, for this given period of time, I don't want to have any requests off, right? I don't want anybody to request off Christmas Eve. I don't want anybody to request off New Year's Eve. Or, maybe you're not that strong of an opinion on it. Maybe it's that I don't want anybody. Maybe it's that you want to have a particular threshold. And if you'll notice up here, if I click day off threshold, I can actually define for a given period of time that there are particular rules. So I can say that maybe by position per day, I can see here that I'm only ever allowing one expediter to request off per day, right? I can't have more than one request off. Or on any given day, I won't allow more than one request off. And you can mess around with these settings until you get them to where you want them. And then you'll even have a notice here. Once that threshold has been reached, you can choose to automatically deny any requests that come through. Right? So if you're the fifth person to request off and I only allow 4, then that fifth person is automatically going to be rejected for having been the fifth person. If I click on a day, I can just straight turn it off if I want. So I could wait till I had a number of requests. And another feature that's fantastic, I don't think you've had any requests off yet, TeamworX Burger, but if there were requests pre-existing in a schedule, I can actually click on that day or hover over that day. And you'll notice that if it had a black circle, that would tell me there was already time off requested. And I could open that up and see what those requests were that existed for that day already. So if I needed to make a judgment call on maybe that day needs to be disabled for the future, I can have that. Also hiding on this page under the printer icon is this export approved time off. So we talked about excellent little reporting features. If I had requests off, I could actually choose to show me a list by day, right? Everybody who's had an approved request time off, you could have them all in one place. Now this defaults to looking by the year, but that would be particularly useful. Maybe if I looked at the month for just December, I could see what I had going on. So the first one is those manage blackout dates. You can choose as the managing partner or general manager to let other people have access to that as well, or make it a cooperative decision. It's just generally been my experience that that's something general managers like to choose. The last one is the really big one, and that here is your staffing organizer. So this staffing organizer, as we can see in a lovely example from Max Burger CT, is what allows you to define what job codes your individual managers can write schedules for. So if I have 5 managers on my team and all 5 managers write individual schedules and they don't overlap at all, then I could set that up so that those 5 would be individual things and those managers would only see what they needed to. And the side perk of that is, in addition to that being what they see, if there is no overlap between the schedules, for instance, I don't have host on the support and the server schedule, they could actually publish, as in send those schedules out to employees individually. So I could say my bar schedule is done, send it out. All the bartenders know what their schedule is before someone else has finished theirs and not have to wait for somebody else's department. You know, I like to think this is particularly useful because, at least in my past experience, the bartenders and cooks were always done well in advance, but the hosts and servers were always the last ones to be done. Not holding bartenders and servers up to send out servers and hosts is very helpful. So in here, we can see he's already got some started, but I can actually start by adding a structure. And what I do to add a structure is first I define it. So what's the name of the structure? What am I calling? Maybe it's front of house, maybe it's support, something like that. I like front of house schedule. And then I pick which positions I think need to have access here. Now this is warning me, all of these are oranges and they're already on other schedules. They'll even give me this warning that tells me if it's on multiple structures, they can't be published independently. And I can choose which ones I need to have. I'm not going to save, I promised Doug and Tema, won't save it. So I can choose to add them by position, or I could even just say maybe I want all front of house or all back of house available to a particular person. And from there, then I next need to define two things. The first is which managers in my location are going to have access to this schedule. Who is going to write for my hosts and my bussers? I'm going to go ahead and say Tema. And I'm also always going to choose at least one other person, right? Just in case of some sort of catastrophe or some sort of amazing good thing that causes someone to be out at any given time, I want to make sure that there's more than one person who has access to this schedule to cover for it. That is not to say that as a NetChef manager, you don't have access regardless of the settings here, but it's just always helpful to have a backup within the team just in case something comes up and someone needs to edit it. And then finally, I can decide who's allowed to publish this schedule. So if I wrote it and I have permission to publish it when I'm done, you know, I don't need oversight, I can go ahead and say, yes, I can publish this schedule. For instance, maybe Tema is training this person named Grace. I could say that Tema and Doug can publish, Grace can view it, but Grace can't publish it. One of the other two has to come in and approve it to be published. So general managers and managing partners, the ones who can access TeamworX with NetChef, this is the big thing that you have access to, is you can create these structures so that your managers only need to see what applies to them, and they won't have to view anything extra, and you can have control over who is in charge of which departments. How do you feel about this? Guys, any questions? Excuse me, people, y'all, folks? All right, cool. I'm going to cancel and not save this because I don't want to override it. I should clarify there is one thing that if you leave any job codes off, perhaps you never ever schedule one of those job codes, you can leave it in what's called the unassigned structure. The unassigned structure doesn't need to be published to move forward. It doesn't have to be interacted with. So if your location is one that just never utilizes one of those job codes, feel free to leave it off in an unassigned structure and not interact with it at all. All right. So once you get into TeamworX, I'm very confident that you're going to enjoy writing with it and getting to interact with your teammates this way. So I will make sure at the end of this to send out this document that covers the changes between this version we're looking at right now and the new version that you're getting tomorrow. It's very exciting, including this onboarding tab, which is probably the coolest thing since sliced bread, but I'm biased, don't mind me. And then just a reminder that there are actually TeamworX courses available for you to use as well. So the TeamworX courses at this time are numbered frequently based on the updates when things happened. But each one of those has important information. One of those is when the staffing organizer was introduced and so on. And I actually have a key that I will send out when I send out the rest of the information. You'll also notice just here, I want to show one more thing so that you general managers have kind of an understanding of what your teammates can see. When they log in, just went to the My Portal here. If I go. One place. There we go. From their side of it, right? They can actually show me how to see videos on how to handle different tasks for themselves. So your teammates, you can direct them to training, or you can use the My Portal side of TeamworX when you're logging in to just get an insight into how it works for them in particular, so that you're prepared going forward. And they have access to that, as well as things that will direct them to where to find that information. All right. You're all a very quiet bunch today. I know you're really busy, so I would like to give you your time back. But if there are any questions, I am here to answer them. Absolutely.
So I do have one question. It came from one of our attendees that I think either signed off or pushed off. He said, can you send me the link to our TeamworX login page? There's no app, correct? Only if you're a non-manager employee. So can you verify that question, please?
Yeah. So the link, and I will make sure to include it when I send out, is just like you were accessing for NetChef. It's mrgct.ct-teamworks.com. I'll actually put it in the chat right now if you want to click for it. Whoop, I typed.
Yeah. So basically, you
not ahead of me.
Right. So basically, you access it via
a direct link for your company. There's the Max link for TeamworX. That's how Max Restaurant Group accesses TeamworX. That's your link. And then as we spoke, you'll use your CrunchTime employee number and your date of birth to create an account and go get started.
And then just to clarify on that question as well, Brian, that for managers, it's right now, it's desktop only. For employees, it's both desktop and app. And our actual TeamworX product strategy team is in the process of building out manager app. They still won't be able to build schedules on the app because it's really, I think building schedules on an app would be extremely difficult. But you can approve shifts, swap, like do basically everything else of making sure that shifts are approved, people, you can approve time off requests and all the other requests that are coming from your employees. Open shifts, messages, and things of that nature, you would all be able to do on the app, but building schedules will always be desktop.
And that functionality is coming very, very soon. Last time I checked in, the last time I asked, they said it was tomorrow. So I imagine that even if it didn't go the other day, it's going to be very soon. They're working very hard on it.
Okay. So just to wrap that up, our managers should access and do all the functionality through their NetChef link to TeamworX, but they also should download the app because then that'll give them the ability to do some of these other functions until the full app is available.
Correct.
Such as approving shift changes and things.
Yep.
Okay.
And as I said, sorry.
Oh, jinx. I have some people working on just for Temelin and Jaime and Grace that I had submitted to a ticket to my team. So there was just, because you had access and then you didn't, there's just a quick change that they need to make. So that should be resolved shortly.
And all I was going to say is that while it is a website, it doesn't necessarily have to be navigated to from a computer. It is optimized for mobile. It works almost as well on mobile. The only limitation being that while you can do scheduling from a tablet, it will not allow you to schedule from a cell phone for the same reasons Joe mentioned, that it would be very difficult to manage all of that on a little tiny screen.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Emily, so much for taking us through today's training session. Like Emily mentioned, if anybody has any questions, feel free to reach out to us just via email, or I'll CC'd on this meeting link. But otherwise, Bobby and Brian talk to us pretty regularly. So if anything comes up, just let them know and we'll be able to help you out. Thanks, y'all. Thanks, Emily.
Thanks, everybody.
Send me the link to the video, please.
Absolutely.
Thanks. Ciao.